Anyway, go ahead and read the next paragraph here.
Okay. As for detachment from children, wife, and home, it is not meant that one should have no feeling for these. They are natural objects of affection, but when they are not favorable to spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. The best process for making the home pleasant is Krishna consciousness. If one is in full Krishna consciousness, he can make his home very happy because this process of Krishna consciousness is very easy. One need only chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna, have some discussion on books like the Bhagavad-gītā and the Srimad Bhagavatam, and engage oneself in deity worship. These four things will make one happy. One should train the members of his family in this way. The family members can sit down in the morning and the evening and chant together Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If one can mold his family life in this way to develop Krishna consciousness, following these four principles, then there is no need to change from family life to renounced life. But if it is not congenial, not favorable for spiritual advancement, then family life should be abandoned. One must sacrifice everything to realize or serve Krishna, just as Arjuna did. Arjuna did not want to kill his family members, but when he understood that these family members were the impediments to his Krishna realization, he accepted the instruction of Krishna and fought and killed them. In all cases, one should be detached from the happiness and distress of family life, because in this world one can never be fully happy or fully miserable.
Are you married?
I am.
How do you have kids?
No kids.
Okay, so you're happy then.
Yeah.
My friend used to say that, are you married? No. Oh, you're happy then. But, I had a long plan, when I was a brahmachari for 30, 40 years, I'd never get married. But then, I wanted to date, and so this woman just reeled me in,
I'll do that. Yeah.
But anyway, I'm glad I got married because, but I was smart enough not to have kids. I got married late. I was a late bloomer, but it's a very work-intensive thing, and I'm really not qualified. Maybe I'm qualified now that I'm reading Prabhupada's books, but 20 years ago when I got married, I was definitely not qualified to. So, because if you have a dependent, like even a wife, especially kids, you shouldn't become a father or a mother or a guru or a demigod or a king or anything unless you can deliver your dependents from birth and death. That's a requisite. It's a Vedic injunction that you should not take any of those positions unless you can free your dependents from the cycle of birth and death. Because very
kind of
important.
relates back to that last paragraph.
Yeah, it's the last. Right goes back to that,
Yeah.
and it's because that is. It's one of the articles of wisdom. Unless you understand that this is the four evils of the material world: birth, death, old age, and disease, then you're nothing but an animal, basically, and you will just you'll eat, sleep, mate, and defend, but then you'll die like an animal. And it's basically a miserly position because the human form of life affords one the possibility of gaining spiritual knowledge, which will put an end to all of these four problems. So it's such a valuable thing. If you don't take advantage of it, one is pretty much condemned. You probably have to take birth as an animal just to rectify our life, because it is an offense not to use something that... If you don't use something, like if you have a bunch of money and you don't use it for the proper way, you're a miser. That's what the definition of a miser is. He doesn't spend it on himself. He doesn't spend it on his family. He just keeps it. But a person in spiritual miserliness is not taking advantage of this human form of life in a way that can advance us to Krishna consciousness. Oh, here's Mellisa. I hope she's here. Let me see her.
Yeah.
Are you here?
Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
hi, Mellisa. How are you? You're not moved yet.
Yeah, don't talk about that. Thanks.
Okay. So, how are you?
I'm safe. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks for joining. You might not be able to do anything for the next few weeks then, huh? Because you'll be pretty much occupied.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wish you luck in your endeavor. I hope you can find somebody that'll take a cat.
Thanks.
I saw your Facebook post. So anyway, let me see if I can narrow it down to one window here, because I'm going to be able to read it. I'll read the next paragraph.
I mean, no one's taking my cat. I'm keeping my cat.
I know. That's why I said, you've got to find somebody that'll, it's 2-for-1 deal. You have to have the cat and you.
Yeah, no one knows I'm moving.
Oh, no one knows.
The person I live with, they don't know I'm moving.
Okay, well, you had that on your Facebook page, so it's like.
Yeah, he was. I discluded him from that.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's continue here. We've read a couple paragraphs, but you're not too far behind here. We only read 2. I'll read the next one, and then you can read the one after that. This one is: happiness and distress are concomitant factors in material life. One should learn. Go ahead.
Sorry, happiness and distress are
concomitant. That means
factors in material life.
That means that wherever we have a material body, there will be happiness and distress. It's the duality of the material world. You're going to be happy some days, and you'll be distressed other days. And the problem is we think that we want to separate the happiness from the distress, put all the happiness on one side of the table and put all the distress on the other side of the table. But I remember reading an essay by Ralph Waldo Emerson called Compensation. It's actually about karma. He was talking about the duality of the material world, and he was saying that since the beginning of time, no man has ever had any success in doing that. You can't separate the happiness from the distress. In other words, you're going to have a certain amount of happiness and a certain amount of distress in any kind of situation. There's nothing you can do to change that, because that's our karma. Unless you surrender to Krishna, and then your karma changes. But the thing is that you can't change the dualities, because distress comes out of its own accord, and as much as happiness comes of its own accord. And it's impossible to change that, in as much as it's possible to get an inside without an outside, or a light without a dark. It's just part of the duality of the material world. It's like Emerson says, you part the water with your hand, but it reunites behind itself. You can't do it. It's not possible to change your karma. You have a certain amount of happiness, and you can't, by working hard, you can't be any happier. You're still going to eat the same amount of food, and it really doesn't change that much with your increased working. And in fact, it makes more problems. Prahlad Maharaj, the son of Hiranyakashipu that we sing about every time, he said, if you want to be happy, here's the idea: stop trying to be happy. Because the more you try to be happy, the more you entangle yourself in material plans, and those are just complicating of themselves. Just accept whatever's coming and depend on Krishna, and then surrender to Him, and then we'll be spiritually happy. Whatever karma will happen, then that'll be just Krishna's arrangement, or He'll get rid of all our karma. It says when you clap your hands in front of the deities, all the lines in your hand change, because it gets rid of all your karma that you've had, even good and bad karma. Because you don't have any more responsibilities either. That's why I think you should go to New Vrindavan. But at least temporarily, and maybe check it out, as a future prospect, but it's a very wonderful place, and just by the association of devotees, your karma will change. But that's what it means by concomitant factors. There's no way of avoiding it in material life. As long as we have these bodies, we'll have happiness and distress in material things. Heat and cold, victory and defeat, honor and dishonor. The lessons of the Bhagavad-gītā are, don't be affected by these things because they're temporary. And so we should just tolerate it. One should learn to tolerate as advised in Bhagavad-gītā. Krishna says to Arjuna, Tam tatikṣāṣtaka, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and the disappearance in due course are like the coming and going of winter and summer seasons, and one should not be disturbed by such changes. See, it says, no, so one should not be detached from the materialistic way of life and automatically be equipoised in both cases. Generally, when we get something desirable, we're very happy, and when we get something undesirable, we're distressed. But if we're actually in the spiritual position, these things will not agitate us. To reach that stage, we have to practice unbreakable devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna without deviation means engaging oneself in the 9 processes of devotional service: chanting, hearing, worshiping, offering respect, etc. As described in the last verse of the 9th chapter. That process should be followed. So we're doing that right now. We're engaging in Krishna's service by hearing his words. And when we're doing that, we are beyond, we are actually practicing, we're on the position where we won't be disturbed by these comings and goings of happiness and distress. Like, the material life is like a football field. You got the ball and you win the game or whatever, and you're happy, but then you lose the ball or whatever it is, you get something you want and then you're happy, but if you lose it, then you're sad, and so it's like always hankering and lamentation. We're being kicked back and forth on the football field, and it's really just a temporary situation. But if you're on the unbreakable surrender path to Krishna, then you won't be disturbed by all these temporary manifestations of happiness and distress, because you'll know that they arise from just from the natural things that we've done in the past that come upon us, and we won't be disturbed because that's not really who we are. What we are is a spirit soul that's beyond the karma of this material world. And the unbreakable devotional service, that's the path of surrender. If we surrender to Krishna, then we won't be disturbed by any of these things. We'll be fixed in our determination to serve Krishna and just surrender to his will only. Why don't you read the next one, Mellisa? This one here.
Yes. Naturally, when one is adapted to the spiritual way of life...
Hold it. There you go. Sorry.
We will not want to mix with materialistic men. That would go against his grain. One may test himself by seeing how far he is inclined to live in a solitary place without unwanted association. Naturally, a devotee has no taste for unnecessary sporting or cinema going or enjoying some social function, because he understands that these are simply a waste of time. There are many research scholars and philosophers who study sex life or some other subjects, but according to Bhagavad-gītā, such research work and philosophical speculation have no value. That is more or less nonsensical, according to Bhagavad-gītā. One should make research by philosophical discretion into the nature of the soul. One should make research to understand the self. That is recommended here.
Yeah, I was just reading an article by ISKCON that was put out about conspiracy theories. Like all these devotees, sometimes they engage in conspiracy thinking. I don't know what it is about devotees, but sometimes it seems like they're especially inclined. But he was talking about all the psychological reasons why we are caught up in these things, and it is basically a waste of time. I mean, we have all this knowledge, so why are we researching who is like destroying the world or who's the evil people that are involved? I've heard so many things from devotees. Like Ukraine is like making biological weapons, and America's helping them, and Anthony Fauci's corrupt, and the coronavirus vaccine has killed tens of thousands of people, and it'll kill a lot more. I mean, they were saying that, instead of researching all this stuff, people spend way too much time on the internet, and they're totally fascinated by these things, even devotees, But this is basically a waste of time, like Prabhupada says here. If you study an insignificant foliage like grass, there's hundreds of books on the grass, but why would you waste your time on that? Why not understand who you are, and then maybe you can understand what to do with your life, So that's the real philosophical research, talking about the nature of the soul, understanding the self. That's what we should focus on instead of all this other nonsense. Hey Eric, you want to read the next paragraph?
Sure. As far as self-realization is concerned, it is clearly stated here that bhakti yoga is especially practical. As soon as there is a question of devotion, one must consider the relationship between the supersoul and the individual soul. The individual soul and the supersoul cannot be one, at least not in the bhakti conception, the devotional conception of life. This service of the individual soul to the Supreme Soul is eternal, nitya, as it is clearly stated. So bhakti, or devotional service, is eternal. One should be established in that philosophical conviction.
Okay, so you want to read the next one, Mellisa?
In Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11, it is explained, Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yagnam advayam. Those who are actually knowers of the absolute truth know that the self is realized in three different phases, as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the last word in the realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should reach up to that platform of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus engage in the devotional service of the Lord. That is the perfection of knowledge.
Beginning from practicing humility up to the point of realization of the Supreme Truth, the Absolute Personality of Godhead, this process is just like a staircase beginning from the ground floor and going up to the top floor. Now, on this staircase, there are so many people who have reached the first floor, or second, or third floor, but unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, he is at a lower stage of knowledge. If anyone wants to compete with God and at the same time make advancement in spiritual knowledge, he will be frustrated. It is clearly stated that without humility, understanding is not truly possible. To think oneself God is most puffed up. Although the living entity is being kicked by the stringent laws of material nature, he still thinks, quote, I am God, end quote, because of ignorance. The beginning of knowledge, therefore, is amanvitva, humility. One should be humble and know that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Due to rebellion against the Supreme Lord, one becomes subordinate to material nature. One must know and be convinced of this truth. I just put up a meme on my Facebook page. I'll show you the meme. It's pretty cool. You ever heard of that? There's a saying, so some company has a better idea. We have a better idea. You ever heard of that? Huh. I'm old, so maybe that's like a really old advertisement. But here's the meme down here. If I can get this thing to work. See, can you see that? Krishna's got a better idea than you. Krishna's got a better idea. Always he has a better idea. Why? Because he's God and you're not. Don't be puffed up full. If you think yourself better than Krishna or you think you're equal, you want to compete with God, that's a pretty losing battle there. I mean, all kinds of demons wanted to get into it with Krishna and they should know. Say, yeah, I'll teach him a lesson. They think they're so powerful, but Krishna's, he's got all strength, all beauty, he had 16,000 queens. I mean, who can enjoy more than him? Who can, conquer everyone and not get killed? Only him. He's infallible and he knows everything. So, and he has everything. He owns everything. So, and we own nothing. So how can you compete with Krishna? That's pretty stupid. I mean, you have to be really puffed up to think that you're God, and I've heard that from a lot of people. My guy that was going to come up here and redo my bathroom, he was like some kind of into Buddhism or something like that. He said, "Did you know that you're God?" I said, "No, I'm not God."
That's popular.
I know, it's really popular. That's what Prabhupada came here to teach. We say our pranam mantra to Prabhupada every morning. It goes, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivisheshishunyavadi Praskatchade Satarne, which means obeisance unto you, spiritual master. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev and delivering the Western countries, which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. These two ideas that you can be one with God, you can merge into His effulgence or something, or that God, that actually the ultimate understanding is nothingness, voidism. They're both kind of the same, but it's a disease, really. And the Westerners are infatuated with that kind of thing. Even, that's why Buddhism is kind of like atheism, because even though he was God, he kind of like tricked everybody into believing and following him. So it was good at the time, but we don't accept their philosophy because the Buddhists rejected the Vedas, and that was just a temporary situation because he had to stop the killing of animals. Basically, that's why he appeared, because they were using the Vedas to sacrifice animals, and he wanted to stop that cruelty. And so he appeared and practiced ahimsa. Did you know that? That's why Buddha appeared 3,000 years ago. Anyway.
Well, it's just there's that picture in the Gita of the 10 different incarnations.
Yeah.
And I was looking that up the other day because I didn't know anything about the fish and the turtle.
Yeah,
I wanted to learn more about the fish and the turtle.
Oh yeah, that's
awesome. I read
awesome.
the one about Buddha, and that was
He is an incarnation of God. But he tricked people. They were really materialistic back then. And he said, "There's no such thing as God. I'm not God. But you should follow me." And they did. And so they made advancement. But here's the nature of the Bhagavad-gītā. There's a whole in the first canto. There's a whole chapter on the incarnations of avatars of Krishna. And the Bhagavad-gītā said this was written 5,000 years ago by Vyasadeva. And it said where Buddha would appear. This is this test. If anybody says they're God, first of all, you have to be in the scriptures, right? It has to be mentioned. They mentioned where Buddha would appear, what province he would appear in, what his name would be, and what his father's name was. 2,000 years before he appeared. That is the accuracy of and the expertise of the person who wrote this scripture. They're Trikalagyan, which means they know past, present, and future, and they know when the incarnations will happen, and they're all on a scheduled basis. The next incarnation will be at the end of this yuga, which is Kalki, the dude riding on a horse that'll just kill everybody, all the demons, because everybody will be demoniac by then, and then they'll start another golden age at that time. But we don't have to worry about that right now. We have enough things to worry about in this Kali Yuga, It's like that's going to happen for another 427,000 years. So we got a long way to go. And it's only going to get worse from here, so I would suggest getting out of this material world before then. But, okay, so, I guess I'll just read the Sanskrit here, just to get things along. We have 4.5, almost 5 minutes left. Text 13. Gneyam yatat pravakshyami yajñatvamritam asnute anadimat param brahma nasatan nasad uchate. Synonyms: Jnanam, the knowable, yat, which, tat, that, pravakshyami, I shall now explain, yat, which, jnatva, knowing, amritam, nectar, ashnute, one tastes, Anadi, beginningless. Mat Parama, subordinate to me. Brahma, spirit. Na, neither. Sat, cause. Tat, that. Na, nor. Asat, effect. Echete, is said to be. Go ahead and read the translation and the first paragraph, Mellisa.
Thank you. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. The world has explained the field of activities and the knower of the field. He also explained the process of knowing the knower of the field of activities. Now he begins to explain the knowable, first the soul and then the supersoul. By knowledge of the knower, both the soul and the supersoul, one can relish the nectar of life. As explained in the second chapter, the living entity is eternal. This is also confirmed here. There is no specific date at which the jiva was born, nor can anyone trace out the history of the Jivatma's manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is beginningless. The Vedic literature confirms this. Na jayate mriyate ya vipaskit Katha Upanishad 1-18. The knower of the body is never born and never dies, and he is full of knowledge.
Yep. Sanskrit, reading Sanskrit. You should maybe try it in the future. You can read the verses and stuff. Go ahead, Eric.
The Supreme Lord is the Supersoul. As the Supersoul is also stated in the Vedic literature, the Savatara Upanishad 6:16, as the Pradhana Kestrajana Patir Ganesha, chief knower of the body and the master of the three modes of material nature. In the Smriti, it is said, Dasho Bhuto Harar Eva Nanya Savivya Kadachana. The living entities are eternally in the service of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed by Lord Chaitanya in his teachings. Therefore, the description of Brahma mentioned in this verse is in relation to the individual soul, and when the word Brahman is applied to the living entity, it is to be understood that he is the Janya Brahma, as opposed to Adanya Brahma. And Adanda Brahma is the supreme Brahman personality of God.
Yeah, Ananda means bliss. Vijnana means knowledge. But there's three features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Ananda is the full feature of the Supreme Personality of God. The Brahman realization is just the knowledge of the eternal feature, but there's no bliss there. But if you know Krishna, then you can relate with him in any different relationship as servant or friend or lover or parent or whatever, then there's bliss. But without a personal relationship with Krishna, then there's no shelter, really. Anyway, we're out of time here, but so you're able to join us on Mondays, right? Right, Eric?
Usually.
I should be, yeah. We will.
Okay, let me know if you can or can't. Okay, next Monday?
Yeah.
Because I may only have this unless there's somebody on there, because otherwise I read to myself all day. That's no fun. Nobody wants to see my face anyway. So, but and let me know when you're all settled in, Mellisa. My thoughts and prayers are with you, and I hope that you